What's up, Gov Seekers? How are you doing? Hope you had a nice holiday, Thanksgivingness, or whatever you're celebrating or surprising. Surprising? I think I wanted to say celebrating, but maybe you're surprising stuff. You're just going surprise. Hey, America's funding genocide or whatever it is. I don't know. Thank you for watching on my YouTube and Lee's YouTube, and of course Rockfin. You can do super chats to support our show that help. And then you can sign up for Patreon, which is patreon.com/government secrets. We'll do a bonus segment right after this. And if you sign up today for Government Secrets, it unlocks over 70 bonus segments. And you can sign up for as little as $5 a month. You can do a little higher tiers and get some merchandise. The Government Secrets mug. It's the only place there's no Government Secrets merchandise available except at Patreon. We have an action-packed show for you, so let's get into it, kids. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Government Secrets with the two most censored comedians in America, Lee Camp and Graham Elwood.
Hey, man.
What's up?
What did you surprise last week?
I surprised so many things. I had a great surprising.
Good.
Really good surprisings. How was your surprisings?
Good. Yeah, I showed up at family that hasn't spoken to me in years. Just that's what I did.
And how did that go down?
Went great.
Everybody,
went awesome.
No,
you have a Christmas album. Speaking of the holidays,
I do have a Christmas album.
It's actually fun. I mean, I listened to some of the samples. It's far better than I thought it'd be.
Wow, Lee, that is a sterling endorsement.
You've got an impressive, mock singing voice.
Yes, this is what I knew I could do. I was like, I can't sing. I cannot sing, but I know how to fake voice it enough to just get close to, what a version. I wasn't even doing direct impressions. I was like, let me just do a version of kind of a Dean Martin guy, kind of a country, kind of an Elvis.
As long as you're making fun of other people who sing, it's simply in the tone of your voice, you're pretty good at it.
Yeah, it's called The Socialist Christmas with Graham Elwood. I'm putting it in the chat here. It's on iTunes or Amazon. It is so fun. Yeah, I know.
And it's on the screen now too, for those of you who listen to the podcast. It's music.apple.com/socialist/1763/bullywinkel but and it's like a tilde. I think it's a tilde.
Operators are standing by, folks. Operators are standing by. I think your reaction is what I was kind of hoping for. Because I know when I said they're like, you're doing stand-up about Christmas? I said, no, I'm singing. Everybody kind of went, oh, okay. Yeah. Everybody was just like, oh, Graham's out of his mind. He's out of his mind. But I know there's something here that it's. And then I did a couple of my characters that I do, like Darien, and it was Detective Stryker. And I read a couple of poems. Not poems, but I read a Eugene Debs speech.
Yeah,
good. It was so fun to make. And my buddy Andy is a very talented musician, Andy Creighton, and he has a band called The World Record. And so he did all the music for it. And him and his wife actually did some of the backup vocals. And I'm so proud of this.
It's the type of thing I see people on a picket line listening to entertain themselves when they have to spend hours outside some god-awful company.
Yeah, in the snow, just trying to get an extra $1 a week or whatever.
Yeah. Just trying to get it down to 2 hands on my ass per day. Sexual harassment. Yeah.
Just get a 20-minute lunch break instead of 10, just some sort of
Smallest little thing. Yeah.
well, Lee, I mean, spread the word. Just say this isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, and then I would really appreciate that.
That is not is that what I said? Maybe that is what I said.
Well, you said it was better than you thought, or I
Yeah,
can't
better
remember
than
how
I
you,
thought. I didn't think I said it was gonna be bad. I just thought it was good.
yeah. You were like, you were listening like, oh, I gotta listen because this is my friend, but oh man, this is gonna be rough.
It's like when a friend who's never said anything that interesting. I don't mean this to you as a separate example, but someone
Sure.
who's never said anything that interesting is like, check out my poetry, and you're like, oh god,
Oh boy,
oh no, poetry.
this is gonna be really bad. Um,
That was good.
and you go, wow, this person's actually not. They got some deep thoughts inside of them. All right.
Well, it's an impressive skill to be able to like sing well enough as long as you're mocking singing that it
Right.
sounds good.
I come from the William Shatner school of singing where you don't really sing, you just kind of talk your way through it, or
Totally.
kind of a lounge act that just sort of, hey, all right. I'm just, and my buddy Andy, he has a heart of gold. He's a professional musician and he's made a bunch of albums. And he would like, all right, we got to record this thing, and he'd have the music set up and everything, come in on the 4/3 beat measure or whatever. And I'd be like, I don't know what that means. Can you just point to me when it's my turn to sing? Like
I come in on the fourth measure. You're like, I don't know words you're saying. Just
point and I'll sing.
Is there a button you can push that would send a shock through my balls every time I need to chime in?
Can you just kind of cattle prod me when it's my verse?
That's the same thing they did with Meatloaf in the later albums.
They just cattle prodded him. Oh, we're gonna go right now. Oh, Meatloaf, stop it, Meatloaf. But yeah, folks, and then the vinyl version will be out probably after Christmas. It'll probably be done in January, but just in time for May Day. So
yeah, vinyl's tough to get the vinyl out.
Yeah, vinyl takes a while, but you will have I've sent it to the DSA. I'm trying to get all my lefty friends to at least listen and then go maybe promote it a little bit. That's what I'm hoping. Because some of my liberal friends are like, yeah, now more than ever. And some of them are just like, it's your fault that Trump's president. So this song, I'm blaming your album or whatever, even though it came out after the election, but whatever.
See, I have heard very little of it. It's your fault Trump won because Kamala was spanked so hard.
I know.
That it's like, it was your fault. And apparently about 60% of America's fault.
Yeah.
That Trump won.
I know.
Apparently she didn't flip a single county from Republican to Democrat.
Not one
single. There's thousands of counties.
Well, the other, if you just look at the numbers, Trump got basically the same votes in 2020 that he did this year. Yeah. So he didn't pick up any new voters, but 8 million people did not vote.
Stayed home.
Stayed home. What does that tell you? And then I hear the liberals like, it's their fault they stayed home. Yeah. Don't listen. Don't go, wow, why are so many people feel so disenfranchised?
Dude, if I could have an influence on 8 million Americans to refuse to do something, that would be amazing.
That would be amazing. That would be a great skill.
If I could get 8 million people to, protest outside of fucking Comcast or some shit.
If I get 8 million people to download my album, that would be fantastic. Yeah, it feels like there's more liberals willing to kind of listen and learn from this, but I have no faith. I'm sure because in 18 months, all the emails and the texts of like, we've got to stop Trump's agenda at the midterms. Give us $25. Like, those are getting ready to come out in about 12 months, 12 to 14, 15 months, just in to get people to donate for the Democrat.
I feel like those are going to come out in about 3 weeks. We need money now. Yeah.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the Democrats are just going to be rubber stamping all of his horrifying cabinet picks. It's great. It's good stuff. All right, let me
Well,
ask you a serious.
if he plays his hand right, what you do is you put in somebody that's truly like ridiculous, like Hegseth as Secretary of Defense, with white nationalist tattoos all over his body and everything, and then everyone raises a big storm and goes, "It can't be that guy," and then he goes, "Okay," and he puts someone in equally horrific who doesn't have the tattoos,
Yeah,
and then
Rubio.
and then the Democrats are like, "Thank goodness."
Yeah, no, it's going to be, that's what they're doing. That's what they did with Matt Gaetz. They're going to just put up the first guy that's awful, and then they're going to get in there like DeSantis or
Yeah.
Rubio or
And
somebody.
then the Democrats vote for him. Yeah.
Yeah, and they'll say, this is, and Democrats will pat themselves on the back. We got a victory here. It's not a big one, but we got a victory. Are you worried at all? And I got to ask this question legitimately. Since Trump has said, I'm going to go after people that are critical of me, and I forget which sociopath woman he's putting, who's like, basically they've said that, the kids that were protesting their colleges last spring, giving money to Israel, those type of people are going to be put on the terror watch list. Medea Benjamin.
You mean giving money to Palestinians?
What?
You mean giving money to Palestinians, right?
No, they're the ones who give. They support Israel.
Oh! Sorry, the way you phrased it.
Sorry,
I thought you said kids protesting who were giving money to Israel, like the kids were giving money to Israel.
Oh, yes, I didn't phrase that correctly.
Protesting their college giving money to Israel. Yeah.
Yes, that's correct. That their college, they were protesting that their college was giving money to Israel. The kids were pro-Palestinian, many of them. Like that, those groups are going to be put on the terror watch list. Medea Benjamin has even put out some posts saying, "Is Code Pink going to be put on the terror watch list because of what Trump wants to do?" Are you worried that like you, me, Abby Martin, like, are we going to get?
Well, the question is, will they be going after us more than they already are? Because, like, we know all our stuff is suppressed. I mean, my stuff especially, even compared to some of these other anti-Israel voices. But can it get worse? And I mean, yes, it could get worse. Apparently, they're already. Here's the thing: is Democrats are voting for a lot of these things. The efforts. I think what Medea Benjamin might. Well, it's not technically her. I don't. It gets kind of confusing. But the co-founder of Code Pink is Jody Evans. Jody Evans is married to someone who has business in China. He has an office in China. He is not Chinese. He is not part of the Chinese government, but they have gone after him in various ways. And I mean, I don't think Medea Benjamin is talking about that, but she's one step removed from these things where it's like, let's go after the people funding, important news outlets that are actually calling the U.S. to account. But a lot of this stuff was this stuff was moving down the pipeline prior to Trump winning.
Of course. Like, but here's my question is, yes, we've been censored. I mean, we were censored under Joe Biden. We were censored under Trump the first time, Obama. Like it's been, I mean, like the censorship's been, but will it be more overt? Will it be like we're arrested? We're like, they're going to like come and lock us up kind of thing?
I don't think so. Except I do think it's just going to keep getting steadily worse. It doesn't matter whether it's Trump in office. Whoever follows Trump, it'll keep getting worse. When you're witnessing the collapse of an empire like this, in many ways it feels like slow motion, but in other ways, if you consider, hundreds, the scale of larger time frame, it's a blink of an eye. I do think it'll keep getting worse. I mean, going after the Uhuru 3 and Scott Ritter, raiding his house. And I realize these are in the UK, but Kit Clarenberg, Richard Medhurst being held for hours and hours in prison cells for journalism. These things are are horrifying and are a step beyond what they had done even just 5 and 10 years ago. So, yeah, I think it will keep getting worse. I don't know that it has anything to do necessarily with it being Trump, really.
Well, just because he's the thing I've always said about Trump, like when he was president the first time, he was just the most vulgar, overt version of what everyone had done before. You know what I mean? He's just the most like
Yeah.
Obama was like folksy, Harvard educated
It's in your
fascism.
face. It's a revolting empire in your face as opposed to
Yeah.
backed off.
I mean, that's what I feel like, and not, I obviously, I always have to say this. No, I'm not a fan of Trump. No, I didn't vote for Harris. I didn't vote third party. But like, is he just going to no censorship, no questioning, no throttling your account. Just you're arrested, just put on trial, and the media says, "Oh, you're a terrorist, and this is why we're getting you." And like,
no, I don't. I don't think so in that way. I don't think it'll be like, oh, you said something against me on the internet, we're arresting you. I think even he, or at least some of the people around him, know that you start behaving in that kind of forthright, we just arrest anyone who criticizes us way, and you're liable to end up with revolution far quicker, or at least revolutionary elements. I mean, the thing is,
like South Korea, who just put you see what happened in South Korea?
Yeah, the martial law, which he then had to back off of.
The whole country went, and now that he's backed off, they're still protesting.
Like because he showed his colors.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think in that way, but you look at like they'll try and do it in another way where they claim you were doing something more. This is what they've done with, when they arrested Kit Clarenberg for 5 hours and Richard Medhurst for 24 hours. They try to claim, oh, you're like working with Palestinians to, overthrow the British government or overthrow the U.S. government. With Scott Ritter, they're claiming he's working with Russia to do things. So I think they'd have to claim like this greater level of cooperation with some foreign government. Now, if they can overreach farther and farther and say, oh, you once had a text with a Russian, but
okay. All right.
I heard Graham once went to Moscow. So
yes, he did. There's a movie about it.
You didn't hide your tracks very well, Graham.
No, I wasn't being very covert when I made a movie called Graham Goes to Russia. I kind of put it out front there.
When they do arrest you and start questioning you, claim you've never been to Russia. That would be.
That's an AI deepfake. That's not me.
Still, that's a CGI movie. The whole movie CGI.
The whole movie somebody CGI'd me just on a subway with my iPhone going, hey, this is crazy. Look at this.
It's like it's like me in Tibet. I was never there. There's a docu-series called American Comedian in Tibet.
This is your social media account saying, hey, I'm flying to Tibet, everybody. I'm in the Tibet airport. Like this, you did that. All right, interesting. Well, let's do our first segment, buddy. I feel like yours probably is going to be a little darker than mine.
Yeah. I don't know. Neither of them are that dark by our standards.
Like these are sort of like
it's not thousands being executed. It's just a few.
Yeah, it's true. Mine's just about, the pipeline spilling a bunch and nobody gives a shit.
There you go. That's downright cheery.
That's like a birthday clown. That's like a guy doing balloon animals for your kid's party.
Yeah.
Why don't you go first? I want to hear about the Pinkertons.
All right.
Lee Camp, segment number 1, the history of the Pinkertons being really good guys that support the working class.
I mean, they got to be sweet. They have pink in the name.
Come on.
Alan Pinkerton in 1842. He moved to Chicago, and his detective career began just 5 years later when he stumbled upon a band of counterfeiters while scrounging for lumber on an island in the Fox River. The Scotsmen conducted informal surveillance on the gang Basically, it's like one of these idiots who's like, I noticed somebody doing something. I'm gonna hide in the bushes for a while and see what's up. The Scotsman conducted surveillance and was hailed as a local hero when he helped the police catch these men. He found himself called upon from every corner to undertake matters requiring detective skill. Pinkerton soon won a gig as a small town sheriff. He went on to work as the Chicago's first police detective and as an agent for the U.S. Post Office, which doesn't sound like a big deal now, but back then the post office was like also the bank and the money delivery and everything else.
Right.
Around 1850, he opened the private investigation firm that became the Pinkerton National Detective Agency. And it's tough to really like overstate how large they became. Like Pinkertons were a big deal for many decades. They were kind of like a secondary police force in America.
Like
providing private security for railroads was how they kind of got larger. As the company's profile grew, its iconic logo, the large unblinking eye, was developed with the slogan, "We never sleep." Of course, that eye is now like on our money. Also gave rise to the term private eye.
Well, our money's got an Illuminati symbol on the back. The $1 bill has an Illuminati symbol on the back of it, a pyramid with an eye. But
yeah, I think that's essentially what this is.
Yeah, it's not weird at all, but
no,
it's not a cult.
Perfectly normal. While gathering undercover intelligence, he learned at one point that a secret cabal was planning to assassinate Abraham Lincoln. He had just won the presidency, and he was doing a tour to celebrate. Pinkerton immediately tracked down the president-elect and informed him of the alleged plot. They arranged for Lincoln to secretly board an overnight train and pass through Baltimore, where the plot was supposed to take place to kill him, several hours ahead of when the plotters were going to attack. The president-elect arrived safely in Washington, but his decision to skirt through Baltimore saw him lampooned and labeled as a coward in the press. I guess ultimately those criticisms backfired when he ultimately was murdered, but meanwhile, none of the would-be assassins were ever arrested, leading some historians to conclude that the threat may have been exaggerated or even invented by Pinkerton. So Pinkerton was just like a notorious liar. I mean, he made up everything. He made up how these amazing things he did. He was lying about. So he probably lied about there being any plot to get President Lincoln. Also, if there was a plot to get President Lincoln, how exactly would you get someone to tell you about it? I don't know. So probably made it up.
Oh, I love it. Just to increase, boy, you're going to really need private. It's like mob guys come in and put masks on and threaten somebody's business. And then the next day the mob guy shows up. Hey, you need protection. It's a dangerous neighborhood.
Yeah. It's there's definitely that going on. In 1875, when the Pinkertons launched a raid on, so I'm going through, they got bigger and bigger, and I'm going through some of their greatest hits of being awful thugs. They go after Jesse James, which, he was an outlaw. So I guess you're supposed to be like, well, that's fine to go after Jesse James. But they decide to go after Jesse James's brother's mother's house in Clay County, Missouri. Frank and Jesse were nowhere to be found when they got there, but the Pinkertons went ahead and harassed and then got in an argument with his mother, Zerelda Samuel. During the standoff, a member of the detective's posse, so a member of the Pinkertons, tossed an incendiary device into Samuel's window, blowing part of her arm off and killing Jesse James' brother's 8-year-old half-brother. A lot of half-brothers going on, but whatever. One of the James's boys is 8-year-old is murdered. The botched raid turned public opinion against the Pinkertons after seeing his detective denounce his murderers in the papers. Alan Pinkerton reluctantly called off his war against the James gang.
But he wasn't arrested. Nobody was arrested for
No.
murdering an 8-year-old.
Through everything the Pinkertons do, they're just high-fived and
Wow.
They want to get Jesse James, so they go and they blow off his mother's arm, kill his stepbrother or whatever. Like, the
Wow.
Pinkertons also had a more sinister reputation as the paramilitary wing of big business. Industrialists used them to spy on unions or act as guards and strike breakers. Detectives clashed with workers on several occasions. During an 1892 strike by the Amalgamated Association of Iron and Steel Workers, I think we went over this in a past episode. The Carnegie Steel Company paid 300 Pinkertons to act as security at its mill in Homestead, Pennsylvania. They arrive at the plant on river barges. The agents squared off with thousands of striking workers in an all-day battle waged with guns, bricks, and dynamite. By the time the outnumbered Pinkertons finally surrendered, at least a dozen people were done. I think 9 workers and 3 Pinkertons. The fallout from the melee crippled the steel union, but many also branded the Pinkertons as hired thugs, leading several states to pass laws banning the use of outside guards. And here's a little more. This is coming from, weirdly, Teen Vogue has become the only outlet that can actually cover like radical history of America.
How, like, I want to know how this is happening. I mean, I don't want it shut down. I mean, God love them, but like, how is Teen Vogue? Like, there's these like independent socialists or something over at Teen Vogue that are just like,
it was just like, I must have started with one editor. There must have been one editor who was actually a radical, and she brought on some people. I don't actually know, but we have such a void in this country of actual like radical news, radical history, that Teen Vogue can fill a void.
I mean, hats off to them that they're like radicalizing a bunch of teenagers, you know, like this is what's really going down.
Well, the question is, do any teens still read Teen Vogue? I mean, maybe.
Yeah, great question. Is it just like no one's reading our magazine anymore? So you guys print whatever the hell you want. I don't care.
Yeah, go to town. And they're like, well, this gets clicks. It gets clicks when we tell the truth about American history. That's weird.
Yeah, and then just at the end of it, talk about some new shoes or some shit. We don't care. Just put it out there.
Right next to this article about how the Pinkertons are the enemy of the working class and murdered a lot of people, there is a photo of Jonathan Terrell Thomas as a 8-year-old. So,
oh. All right.
Sorry, I had to go back to the teen heartthrob when I was a kid.
Thank you, Teen Vogue.
I can't actually reference a modern day teen heartthrob. So
I'm impressed.
It'd be great if they kept showing the same ones. So it's like a 40-year-old beleaguered Jonathan Taylor Thomas.
Just suburban dad. Just what now?
It's 3 chins, hot. Jonathan Taylor Thomas.
Just wolfing down some crappy food while he picks his kids up from school in a minivan. Just what now?
Watch Haley Joel Osment eat a whole turkey by himself. Yeah,
in a bathtub crying. It's
So here's from Teen Vogue. Few enemies of the working class have loomed larger than the Pinkertons. The Pinkerton National Detection Agency, founded in 1850. It focused on catching thieves and burglars, but soon became the bane of the labor movement for enthusiastic and vicious strike breakers. Throughout the Civil War, they did spy for the Union, so that's one of their positives, but they also hilariously got some of their spying wrong during the Civil War. But throughout the Civil War, they left a bloody mark on strikes, protests, and massacres, gained a ruthless reputation for protecting the interests of capital by any means necessary. As one columnist put it, no man of refined sensibilities would enter the ranks as a hired Hessian of plutocracy, expecting to shoot down his brothers at the command of capital. That had to be like Edgar Allan Poe or someone. That was beautiful.
There's nobody in modern journalism today that could write like that.
I know.
Maybe Hedges. Hedges is very good, but nobody could just say those words like that.
It's just true poetry.
Oh,
The Pinkertons, who are now a subsidiary, by the way, they still exist, a subsidiary of a Swedish security company called Securitas AB, are reportedly cozying up to 2020's version of the Gilded Age robber baron, Silicon Valley tech bosses. Like,
great.
and here's the words of Teen Vogue, like billionaire vampire Jeff Bezos.
Oh, right on. Teen Vogue. Look at you. Go right on. I got to get my new, I got to re-up my Teen Vogue subscription. It sounds like
You totally do. Totally do.
I want
Who
them
has
to
hired the Pinkerton Detective Agency to reportedly surveil workers. By the way, you get a free behind the scenes DVD of Saved by the Bell.
Yeah, I just want to know how fashion forward am I with my little pocket? That's what I want Teen Vogue to tell me. Like,
little pockets are coming back, man.
You know, that's why I'm wearing it.
Coming back in a big way.
That's why I got 3 shirts.
You can fit a single condom in there. You can fit
1 potato chip.
2 matches. You can fit
a chiclet. 1 chiclet.
A lot of good things. You can fit a vape cartridge in there.
1 gummy.
1 gummy. 1 human growth hormone pill.
1 Taco Bell hot sauce packet right in here.
Is that why every time you're wearing those, I see a little Polynesian sauce oozing out of the bottom of them?
Yes, that's correct. You're correct. Okay.
Yep. They're a subsidiary of Swedish company. They also work for Amazon's European warehouses and infiltrate work sites. So that's what they're doing these days. The agency was simultaneously a tool for capital, a myth in American folklore, and a manifestation of state power. In 1886. So we did cover this in a former episode, the Haymarket Affair, as it's called, which is a euphemism. But a bomb is thrown into a crowd of workers who are protesting. It goes off, and then 7 anarchists are arrested, despite 0 evidence linking them to the crime.
Right.
A Pinkerton detective testified at the sham trial that then sent 4 of them to the gallows, so they're hanged. 7 years later, the Illinois governor pardoned the 3 living Haymarket anarchists after identifying that police and Pinkertons were unreliable narrators, basically lied, under oath in court. So the Pinkertons very well may have thrown the bomb to interrupt what was going on in the Haymarket and then blamed anarchists.
Oh, that old trick.
Yeah. The Pinkertons had also taken part in one of the 19th century's bloodiest labor conflicts. I covered that earlier about the 12 people that were killed, and the Pinkertons were hired by Carnegie. They were also called in. This is a part about how they still exist. They were called in to handle security during a strike in West Virginia in 2018. I cannot believe the Pinkertons are still a thing.
Wow.
I can't believe they still exist. It's like, how many people do you have to murder to not? It's kind of my same stance on the Catholic Church. How many children do you have to sexually assault before you aren't around anymore?
Well, you just got to blame all the Catholics that keep going, keep coming back.
In 1936, the U.S. Senate's La Follette Civil Liberties Committee launched a years-long investigation to the widespread anti-labor practices like industrial espionage and strike breaking by detective agencies, including the Pinkertons. Following year, Robert Pinkerton II, great-grandson of the founder, purportedly ended the agency's anti-union work. That was in 1936. They were called in during a strike in 2018.
Wow.
If you go to their
website, it's just as perplexing as the fact that the Kennedy brand is still relevant and in the news, but with RFK Jr. You know what I mean? It's kind of like that.
It's very, very much rebranding. Yeah. Um, so if you go to their website today, they have a timeline of all the awesome stuff the Pinkertons have done, and they lie by omission. For example, the article says the 1855 entry mentions how they specialized in protecting railroad shipments, but conveniently skips past the Great Railroad Strike of 1877, when the Pinkertons worked as infiltrators in a months-long open conflict that left over 100 people dead.
Jesus Christ. This is like a full-on like army.
Yeah, and I might be getting to it. I don't remember which part it's in, but they mentioned that at its height, between the active Pinkertons and the reserve Pinkertons, they were larger than the U.S. police force. Oh, no, sorry, larger than the U.S. Army. They were definitely larger than the U.S. police force, which barely existed back then in the way it does now, but they were larger than the U.S. Army. A Pinkerton detective named James, this is an 1870. Oh, sorry, that's the. Oh, no, that's right. This is in 1870, I think. Oh, 77. Pinkerton detective named James McParlin was hired to infiltrate and disrupt the union organizing activities of the Molly Maguires. The Molly Maguires were a secret society of Irish immigrant coal miners who advocated for awful, horrific things like workers' rights. They also terrorized foremen and supervisors, which, this is a bad thing. And they also refused to fight in the Civil War because they said they would not fight in a rich man's war. Thanks to McParlin's efforts, a number of Molly Maguires were executed by the state in 1877. So here's the Pinkerton. Often the Pinkertons were they did some of the killing themselves, but a lot of it was like they would frame people or they would get people hanged by the court systems.
Gee, nothing's more American than we're going to execute an anti-war organization. People that are who don't think the Civil War is bad because it's a corporate war. We're going to execute them for being like, that's.
Yep.
And of course, it also goes back to this thing like Americans think like the anti-war movement, started in the 1960s or whatever during Vietnam. And it's like, no, I mean, I've talked about this before on this show and in my show is that's the origins of Mother's Day actually is moms not wanting their sons to die. And it started in the Civil War. It came back during World War I, but there was a heavy anti-war movement during the Civil War.
Yeah. Yeah.
God.
No, anti-war efforts go back a long ways.
It's weird that there's always people that are like, hey, killing each other so rich people can profit seems wrong.
Well, and often in these wars, going all the way back, even Revolutionary War, the rich would have ways to get out of being drafted or fighting.
Of course.
Often they could just hire someone much poorer to take their place. But most of these wars are ultimately, whether you view them as a good war to fight or not, are being fought by the poor.
Always. Always. There's no war of rich kids fighting each other. Except maybe that fire festival and wherever that
They were fighting over the chance to meet Blink 182. According to the New Republic, the Pinkertons were also brought in alongside the Colorado National Guard during the 1914 Ludlow Massacre, in which the guardsmen attacked and set fire to the camp where miners and their families slept. 66 people, many of whom were women and children, died in the attacks. So there's a strike ongoing. They set the campsite aflame and 66 people died.
Nice.
So this is how awesome the Pinkertons were.
This is their rich history of
yeah. Just awesome crime fighters, and everybody wanted to be a private eye.
Mm-hmm.
Alan Pinkerton died in 1884. He left control to his sons, Robert and William, who I assume he had carefully and strategically raised to be sociopaths. The company continued to grow under their watch, and by the 1890s, boasted, here it is, 2,000 detectives and 30,000 reserves, more than the standing army of the United States.
Oh, nice work, boys.
And still around, let's not forget.
Amen. And that's the story of the Pinkerton family doing great things for America.
Family. Yeah.
4 generations of sociopaths murdering working class people who just want civil rights and liberties and working conditions.
And I feel like the people would be more scared of them and view them more negatively if they were named something more creepy, like Blackwater or something. I feel like the problem is you say Pinkerton and people are like, it sounds sweet.
Well, again, this is where Hollywood has participated in this. You know, there were movies where like the Pinkertons are coming to the rent. Like they were always depicted as like the good guys showing up to, you know, take care of some trouble, you know, and it's like, no, they weren't.
Yeah.
No, they weren't. All right, let's get into my segment number 2, the long, rich history of the Alaska pipeline spilling oil. Woo!
Spoiler alert.
I don't get it. I don't understand what that means. Let me bring this up. So where is it? Here. There. First, we're just going to go through a couple of the spills over the years. And then we're going to talk about one of my favorites. So the little history on the Alaska pipeline. It was started, or the idea of it was under Nixon. We needed more oil, of course. Oh, and the Saudis and all this stuff in the 70s of the gas embargoes and stuff like that caused gas lines in America, people waiting in line for hours to get gasoline and stuff like that. So,
and of course, 70 was when we also made the petrodollar deal.
Yes, and when Nixon took us off the gold reserve and turned us into a fiat currency that's backed by nothing.
I think didn't he take us off the gold reserve earlier?
71.
Oh, okay.
He took us off the gold reserve in 71. So the Alaska pipeline was this thing that people were fighting for. They found in 1968, it was called North Slope, I believe, part of the northern coast of Alaska is where they discovered all of these oil reserves in 1968. And that's when they were like, hello. So, of course, you know, it was a lot of indigenous people's tribal land. So they let them have it. Nobody took the oil. Oh, wait, I read that wrong.
I was like, oh, real. Oh.
That wouldn't be right. Even though there's money to be made, it's just people's land, and that's not the right thing. And we're America, we always do the right thing.
Look, there's a lot of money there, but we gotta do the right thing because at the end of the day, our name is on the line here.
America's the country about doing the right thing.
Our honor is on the right line. Is on the line here.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if anyone said that in a boardroom? How long do you think the laughter would last?
Oh, it's still going. It's 50 years. If it's 5 decades of laughter, it's still going.
Yeah, still going.
Because that story has been told that would be told like at every country club and
yeah.
Oh, have you ever heard me? You gotta listen to this.
Frank was loaded one time at this board meeting, and he walks in. He says, "Look, we got to do the right thing."
Now, I was a kid at the time, but my old man laughed about it. I've been telling that story at every Thanksgiving ever since. So yes, of course, there was a legal battle, and you know they eventually won, took the land away from people. I'm sure Kissinger was involved somehow, just because it just felt like he just wanted to do something evil.
Always is. He's always involved.
So then the Alaska pipeline was open for business starting in 1977. In its first year, a large pump station exploded and spilled 300 barrels of oil. In 1978, vandals blew up a section of the pipeline, spilling 700,000 gallons.
But no one lives there. There's nothing important there, so it doesn't matter, right?
No, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. A 7.9 magnitude earthquake in 2002 damaged several vertical supports that held up the pipeline. In 2006, a quarter-inch hole in the pipeline caused a corrosion spilled 212,000 gallons, impacting nearly 2 acres of tundra and frozen lakes.
An 2-inch hole causes 212,000 gallons. It's insanity.
Yes.
Which also brings us to an important point that I always like to reiterate. All pipelines leak. They all leak. There's no pipeline that does not leak eventually. So whenever they're cutting through some, endangered area, endangered species and everything, and they go, well, we're going to be really safe with this. They're all going to leak. They all leak.
All of them. And like, this is the thing I've said, rather than have all these pipelines that leak, that explode, that cause the damage, if we had a pipeline system for water, so the states that are going through flooding can send the water to the states that are going through a drought. You know what I mean? Like we could solve any sort of water problems with a pipeline system. And again, if those pipes would leak too, but they would just leak water. They wouldn't contaminate the soil. They wouldn't do all of this awful stuff. So those are all the major leaks that happen. 2009, also 3 to 6 significant spills occurred annually on the North Slope. So that's all.
Are we already up to 2009? Because you skipped Exxon Valdez, I think.
Well, Exxon Valdez.
Oh, it's not a pipeline.
Wasn't the pipeline, but it was in relation to this because the Exxon Valdez was a ship that was in that area, and it was about Alaskan oil, right? But the one I really want to focus on, I want to go back to 2001.
But they cleaned up that Exxon Valdez, so
yep, done.
All cleaned up.
Yep, and
you should have seen that water. It was gleaming,
ding,
perfectly clean.
And the guys responsible for it went to jail, and it'll never happen again.
And the birds were better than ever. They actually were cleaner than they'd ever been.
Yes, of course. And the birds have done interviews saying we're cleaner than ever. It's really fantastic.
They've done interviews asking for more oil spills because they come out of them so much better.
Right. So this happened in October of 2001. So about 2-3 weeks after 9/11. There was the largest spill in the 24-year history of the Trans-Alaska Pipeline. That's
what happens when you have trans people running pipelines. I've always said this. I learned this from Joe Rogan. Trans people do not understand pipelines.
See what the woke movement has done to our good oil pipeline system? They fucking ruined it.
Also learned it from Bill Maher. It has ruined every pipeline. Bill
Maher puts out that thing calling out why Harris lost, and many of the stuff he said was like on point, but you still went, Bill, you're part of this problem that you're talking about. Like,
wait, what? I didn't see what he put. I mean, I know everything he says is remarkably stupid, but
it was 2 weeks. It was like a week after the election. He did this 7-minute rant, and a lot of it was like, the Democrats keep losing because they're the party of liberal elites. When you pay $2 million to Beyonce and all this stuff that was kind of like on point, you're like, but Bill, you're part of the liberal elites.
Well, also, I feel like if I looked at it, it would also be a lot of things. But you notice you aren't mentioning the genocide they've endorsed for a year. I feel like that might have played some role.
Yeah, and they don't want to look at the hard numbers of that. Of like, you know how many people I've told just in the last couple of weeks about Rashida Tlaib? Nobody knows this because the media is not putting this number out there. But Rashida Tlaib, openly Palestinian, Democratic Congresswoman, not allowed to speak at the Democratic Convention, who publicly did not endorse Harris, won her district in Michigan just under 70% of the vote, like 69.4% of the vote.
And I'm assuming that they probably spent, like AIPAC probably spent 20 million to have somebody run against her in the
Yeah.
primary or something.
She won. She got almost 20% of the vote. What did Harris get? 48%. Harris got below 49% of the vote.
Yeah.
And that's a state, of course, Harris lost that she really needed to win. No one wants to look at that number. No one wants to look at a district that voted for a Palestinian woman of color, but not Harris. Nobody wants to look at that.
Well, and also Jamal Bowman, who was kicked out of Congress by essentially AIPAC money. I mean, they spent a crazy amount of money to get him out. And he'd already lost because I'm pretty sure it was a primary. But so he's got time on his hands. And he has said in an interview that he contacted Kamala Harris's campaign and said, look, I'm pretty beloved in Michigan. I will go there and stump for you. Now, this is one of the reasons I'm not like a huge fan of these people because, you know, he's more than willing to stump for Kamala Harris. But they wouldn't even respond to him. They had no interest in Jamal Bowman going to Michigan. And
instead, they send Bill Clinton, who like maybe deliberately says all of these offensive things about Palestinians that really turn people off even more. But don't look at that, liberals. Just keep putting out that map saying, well, if men didn't vote, Harris would have won. Yeah, and if only Green Party voters voted, then Jill Stein would be president. Like,
and if Harris had gotten a lot more votes, she would have won.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, look,
great analysis.
I know. It's just like, so you're blaming this on men? Well, here's the thing. America has men and women. You need to actually talk to the whole country and maybe not just nitpick these little things that make you lose.
I mean, it's so stupid to even spend any time on this analysis. It's like the Democrats on half the issues they tried to run. She tried to run to the right of Donald Trump. It was like, I'm going to be worse for immigrants. I want fracking even more than he does. I love Israel's genocide even more than he does. End of story. That's the analysis. You lose when you pretend you're somehow a left-wing party and you run to the right of Republicans.
I'm a proud gun owner. Oh, what? Why am I voting for you then? Like what? Maybe that's why 8 million people stayed home because she gave basically Republican talking points at the debate.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, she spent the whole debate trying to convince Donald Trump that she's more right-wing than him.
It's unreal. It's unreal. But back to this pipeline, the Trans-Alaska Pipeline. The worst spill in a 24-year history was caused by a man who fired a bullet into the 4-foot wide structure after a heavy bout of drinking, law enforcement said. The authorities said they had no indication that the shooting, which caused at least 150,000 gallons of oil to spill, this is the day after it happened. So it actually ends up getting over 200,000 gallons.
Can I just say, you put a pipeline through Alaska, a state that is like 90% men. 90% of those men are, you know, between the ages of 20 and 50 or something. They are some of the biggest drinkers in the world. There aren't any women there to spend time with, so they just spend it drinking. And you didn't think, and every one of them has 3 to 7 guns. You didn't think anybody would fire a pot shot at the pipeline for shits and giggles. Listen, that is your fault, corporate America.
Have you ever hung out with guys with not a lot of time in their hands and a lot of beer and guns? They're going to start shooting something. They're going to shoot something.
I mean, this is like just, you know, putting a big, you know, poster of Democrats in the hills of Kentucky and not expecting any pot shots to be fired at it.
I mean, if I was, and I've done some shows in Alaska, and if we went out after shows and they're like, hey man, you want to go shoot the pipeline? I'd be like, fuck yeah, let's do it, man. Let's come on. Like,
I was hoping you were going to say it was an activist who was trying to, you know, trying to make a point, but no, this is just, listen, you put a pipeline through fucking Alaska. It better be bulletproof.
Yeah, it wasn't, as it turns out, Lee. Rob McWhorter, a spokesman for the Joint Pipeline Office, a federal state agency that oversees the pipeline organization, said, quote, "This is a case of an idiot with a gun out along the pipeline with alcohol."
How did they not see this coming? Alaska is idiots with guns. It's on the state flag. It's like we have more idiots and more guns. That is the whole point of Alaska.
Daniel Carson Lewis, 37, of Living Good, an old mining town near the pipeline, was arrested and charged with criminal mischief, assault, and domestic violence. The domestic violence charge stemmed from threats the authorities said Mr. Lewis made to his brother, who was not charged. So he's out there fighting with his brother.
Domestic violence was unrelated. It's completely unrelated domestic violence,
but it was against his own brother. So he's out there with his brother. He's shooting at the pipe. His brother probably was like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Shut up, I'll kill you." And then, okay. The 800-mile pipeline is monitored by computers and automatically shuts down when any unsuspected drop in pressure occurs, a measure intended to limit the size of the spill. Didn't work.
Greg Palast has covered a lot of this. They don't upkeep any of the systems that they put in place to try and limit spills.
Yeah.
Like they have sensors, like devices that they can send through the entire pipeline that are supposed to sense every little crack and problem and everything. And they just don't upkeep any of them. So like half of them don't work.
Yeah. And at one point, 120 gallons of oil per minute were spraying out.
And let me guess, there were a bunch of drunk Alaskans with little cups trying to fill them up, collect some oil, take it home, sell it on the black market.
The environmental damage.
It was just full Beverly Hillbilly scenario.
I love your depiction of Alaska. It's really fantastic.
If anyone's in Alaska, can you please tell me I'm wrong? I feel like they're going to agree.
Oh,
have you performed up there? I haven't.
I have. Yes.
I've heard that everything I've just said is true. Is what I've heard.
So yeah, it was roughly 150 to 200,000, but it wasn't as much as the 260,000 of barrels that, as we talked about, that spilled when the Exxon Valdez ran aground in 1989. But yeah, this is the pipeline stretches from Prudhoe Bay on the Arctic across the northern tundra over hundreds of rivers and streams and through 2 mountain ranges to the port of Valdez on the Gulf of Alaska, where most of the oil is delivered to tankers to the western United States. The pipe is protected by a layer of galvanized steel and several inches of insulation. Tim Wilson, an Alaskan postman, said people had fired shots at the pipeline at least 50 times, but had not caused damage that led to the spill.
There you go. I'm absolutely right. 50 separate times they've been shooting at the pipeline. Just out of boredom, just something to do.
50 times. I mean, there's just these guys like, man, you're going to put 800 miles of target across the brain. We're going to shoot it. I don't know what you want me to do.
And apparently this last guy had a little more powerful rifle.
Oh,
dude, your little pansy gun didn't even ding the thing. Look what I got here. This is an anti-aircraft. This will do more.
Just after threatening to kill his brother, he then shoots the pipe to prove a point. I'll say this about Alaska.
I like the cut of his jib.
I like this guy, and Alaska has ranked choice voting, so I like Alaska.
Well, and also speaking of the oil, they have a small version of universal basic income because they each get a tiny percentage of the oil sales. So,
like, do Alaskans know how socialist their state is?
I know.
It's amazing. So that, though, is the second segment of Government Secrets. How after 50 tries, a bullet finally made it.
Finally piercing the Trans-Alaska Pipeline.
So what do you got going on, Lee?
Luckily, you did not mention any environmental damage from any of this stuff. So that is good to hear.
Yep, 150,000 gallons didn't cause a problem. Nothing at all. Didn't.
There we go. There we
And
go.
now I was reading up like today, there's a problem because the permafrost has been melting and that's causing huge problems in Alaska. And it's starting to shift the ground because it was solid like ice. And now the pipeline is like the soil is shifting. So that won't cause any problems. So that'll be fine.
And watch, they'll spend billions of dollars fixing the pipeline under the shifting ground. But meanwhile, they're like, sorry, the bridges are collapsing across America.
We don't have money for solar panels. We got to fix the pipeline, put more steel on it so fucking Jeb and his buddy don't shoot at it on a drunken bender.
Yeah.
So.
All right, we are headed over to patreon.com/government secrets to do an extra segment. Also, we have cool shit going on. I have 1 week from today will be the first performance. There's 2 dates of my live Zoom comedy event with Jonathan O'Donnell, Naomi Caravani from Redacted Tonight, Eleanor Goldfield opening the show. And I will be doing a new comedy hour, and it's $5. And that's at leecamp.simpletix.com.
Another hour. Good for you, dude. You've been banging it out.
Yeah, I don't get to perform live much, so I just put out hours to the ether. So.
Well, I will be having some tour dates through Asia starting in February. So check back at grahamelwood.com. But in the meantime, you can go to any of your favorite digital audio outlets like Amazon Music, Spotify, or iTunes and get A Socialist Christmas with Graham Elwood. Enjoy it. There's a lot of good songs on there. And give it a 5-star review, good reviews, spread the word, spread it on your social media. All that stuff helps. And it's a lot of fun. Give it to your local DSA. I've sent it to the DSA in LA and the DSA National. Give it to any socially leftist that you know. And
I think people have to see this cover image.
Yes. Yes. It's, if you look at the album cover, so there's a picture of Karl Marx with a Santa hat on. The guitar says "This machine kills fascism," which is Arlo Guthrie had that on his guitar.
Yes.
And there it is. And then the stockings behind me, one is a star and then one is the DSA symbol.
And your underwear says "Down with the Pinkertons."
And this was modeled after several like 60s and 70s Christmas album covers.
It looks like that photo shoot must have hurt your face.
Well, I got the sweater and the red shirt at Target and kept the tags on and returned them.
Little does someone know out there that they're wearing the exact socialist Christmas sweater.
Someone out there's a winner. This was shot actually. My friend Paul Gilmartin, who does the funny comedian, Senator or Congressman Richard Martin, he shot this. And then the Comedy Dynamics is the label. They just put all that stuff on there. So yeah, go to, and I got a vegan smoothie cookbook and a lot of other stuff happening. I'm redoing my website and my YouTube channel is going to be, I'm changing it, pivoting to more, calling it like more comedy. It's going to call the Bitcoin Vigilante, talking about Bitcoin and travel. I'm going to just do more travel footage as I travel around Asia doing shows. And I'm going to release a Bitcoin book. But yeah, go get the Socialist Christmas album.
I forgot to tell everybody, speaking of travel, I forgot to tell everybody the name of this Zoom comedy special I'm doing is The Only American in Tibet and Other Stories. So.
Yeah. Who are the comics again? So you got Eleanor.
Eleanor's going to do either a song or spoken word. She's the only non-comedy on the show. Nice. And then Jonathan O'Donnell and Naomi Caravani from Redacted Tonight.
Oh, Naomi's really funny. She opened for me when I was in New York 2 years ago. She's very funny.
Oh, nice. You've never worked with John?
No.
That's interesting. Although you did meet him. I think he was there that night in DC when I met you. But,
Okay, cool.
But anyway, yeah, John's great and be a lot of fun.
Nice. All right, guys, go on over to patreon.com/government secrets, where you get over 70 segments if you join as a Patreon member. This has been Government Secrets, episode 171, the rich, beautiful history of the Pinkertons, and pipelines are safe for everybody.
All right, see you over there.
Thanks, everybody.